Call the meeting to order. Roll call there.
Otis,
Here.
Yancy, Chris,
Here.
Sally, here, Thor, Dave, and Richard.
Here.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any amendments to the minutes from the last meeting? Oh, the agenda for this meeting. Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Do you have any amendments to the minutes from the last meeting? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Do you have any public comments, matters not appearing on the public hearing or consent calendar that are within the borough's jurisdiction? Hearing none, we move on to the consent calendar. No items on the consent calendar. We have public hearing items. We have a review of the application from Stephanie Tynes and Tinas and Brandy Morhall. And Suzanne Clark et al. To vacate the Cora Street right-of-way located between Randall Avenue and Valkyrie Street. Do we have any public testimony on this?
It's pretty clear cut to me.
We got the motion right first. For this before discussion.
So if you're done with the public hearing, then you need a motion to take action.
We haven't heard anything from anyone, so let's, we have a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
I'd like to amend the motion to include the findings back presented.
Okay. We have an amendment to include the findings of fact from Bill staff.
I'll second that.
Yep.
I have one question on page 7 of 82, first line says the area being vacated is of no value to the municipality. On page 7, number 1 says the area being vacated is of no value to the municipality. Maybe I'm a little bit confused, but it does have value, especially if we vacate the easement. Property tax value and stuff.
I think the meaning of that might just be that the borough doesn't have a use for it, like it doesn't need the easement.
Okay.
It doesn't need monetary value.
No Carl's comments.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other comment I had about this is it's written in as if it's only one person, it's or one property owner, so we need to add plurality to it. We're talking about breaking this up and vacating an easement, so more than one, it can be added to more than one
I think
property.
there's four, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's singular in the way that it's written.
But number 3 is applicants, property owners.
It mentions that,
Yeah.
you know, everybody get the same amount of property.
I just misread it then. Yeah, I understand that that wasn't the intent of it.
One general question I did have is, how's the value of it determined if they're going to buy it from the borough?
This was determined by the assessor.
Okay.
It's line 4 on page 7.
Perfect.
Any further discussion? Questions, comments? We have a roll call on, as amended.
Otis,
Aye?
Chris,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Tor,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Okay.
Richard,
Yes.
Dave. This is on approving as amended, the original motion.
Yes.
Tor,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Otis.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Sally.
Yes.
I clicked you already.
Okay. Moving on to consideration of an application from Brad and Sharon Hunter for variance in the side yard setback requirements to construct a 660 square foot garage, 5 feet from the side property line and 10 feet from the front property line at 913C Sandy Beach Road. Do you have any public testimony?
Mr. Chairman, we received written testimony, if you want that read into the record, or if you all have a copy of it.
Yes, we do have a copy of it. Do you have somebody who wants to read it to the record? No volunteers?
Pardon? Would you read that into the record for us, please?
Sure. This is from Dieter Close to Liz Cabrera. To the Petersburg Planning Commission regarding the application of variance by Brad and Sharon Hunter, to whom it concerns, I kindly request the Planning Commission to deny the Hunters' setback variance request. I am their next door neighbor and own the most negatively impacted property by their proposal. Firstly, I cite a precedent in which Mr. John Hove applied for a setback variance of very similar nature, which is summarily denied because the next door neighbor simply pointed out the fact that Mr. Hove was a buildable lot. This ruling occurred about 16 years ago. The Hunter's lot comprises over 12,000 square feet in addition to a wide right-of-way which they virtually clear-cut and filled and used for parking and boat storage. The Hunter's lot is certainly a buildable lot, and by precedence, any request for variance or setback should rightly be denied. Next, I will comment on the 3 other points addressed in the Hunter's application. See page 2. In the February 12th Planning Commission staff report, the findings of fact are wholly irrelevant to their determination of item 1. Correction. There are no exceptional circumstances to the subject property which don't apply generally to other properties. Several adjoining neighboring properties are the results of subdivisions, and all of those properties are very irregular shape, be it trapezoidal or rhomboid. And all these properties also have large right-of-ways, and the structures on all of them must meet setback requirements. Though these irregular lot shapes may limit location of outbuildings, they certainly don't prevent it. The Hunter's lot is no exception to this fact. It's quite surprising that the staff report would make such a determination because the city plats and the Hunter's aerial photo clearly shows the staff's mistaken statement. Please see page 3. The modest size of proposed garage is not a reasonable comparison to the 2 other large garages nearby. Lowe's Warehouse is on its own lot, and Keeneman's shop is on a huge corner lot. If improving public safety, meaning they reduce public safety, question mark, is the intent with their boat trailer traffic, I suggest they park their boats elsewhere, as it appears the property they bought is not big enough for their desires and 2 boats. Please don't make me suffer getting walled in because of their poor planning. Further notes regarding the impacts on my property and setting for new precedents. The hunters clear-cut and filled their lot with rock to the level of my 2nd story flooring. Their modest-sized 16-foot tall garage will act as a huge wall at my southern property line, far higher than my rooftop. I have every intention of adding several windows to the south side of my house. The hunters' claim that their garage won't impact my view is wholly bogus. It will stop my south light and view. The idea that the hunters will paint the garage a color in sync with the landscape leaves the question: what is in sync with a clear-cut rock pad? The hunters claim that they'll plant trees is questionable, as in the 5 or so years they've owned it, they've not planted any, rather they get cut down. I have planted dozens of saplings along our property line, several which are threatened by hunters' firewood piled into my property, which is slowly leaning over to crush my saplings. The hunters' other various piles of randomly covered wood and stuff near my property line is an ongoing eyesore. Now they want to crowd me with their towering garage. This will sadly reduce the quality and aesthetics of my property as well as its value. The hunters claim it will be a good-looking structure. From the drawings I've seen of it and with my vast architectural experience, I would put it in the ugly category, like the huge cold storage shed, only smaller. There goes the neighborhood. One would think that when someone buys a property, they are aware of its shape, size, and limitations and plan accordingly, rather than complain about it later and try to crowd their neighbor as a result. All this would be a bit more palatable if they would clean up their mess before adding another one that will tower over my property within the setback codes. These codes are there for many reasons. I urge the city to deny the hunters' variance request because it is a buildable lot. Thank you. Peter Close.
Any further public testimony? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
After, the motion says that we approve,
We have to make a motion
In the positive.
in positive, and then second it, and then we can discuss it.
I make motion, we approve this variance.
Better discussion, I'll second that.
Can I amend it again to include the finding facts?
I haven't voted on it yet.
Sure.
Just change it now.
I just mean amend it before we vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they can make a friendly amendment, if everyone's okay with it, it's made it, seconded,
Yeah.
they all consider it friendly amendment.
Discussion.
Peter brought up some good points.
Yeah.
It is a big building, 16 feet tall. It's a big wing. And it looks like there's quite a bit of property actually between the house and the proposed garage area.
Yeah, the drawing that they submitted does not look like it's to scale.
I know, I was kind of
And
concerned
that's
about
what makes
that
it
too.
hard to assess what the dimensions are, because the 5 foot on the back setback, or the side setback, and the 10 foot on the front setback are clearly not the same, or not the same scale, which makes it really hard to determine how far that building is from the house.
Yeah, Chris, this is Dave. I have a tendency to agree. I'm having a hard time visualizing it. I looked at the photos and, I don't know. I mean, I guess instead of denying or accepting this, I would like to have an opportunity to actually go out and physically take a look at it. Because, before I vote on it.
I agree with that.
Close the group.
Yeah, I can't see the, I can't, just from the drawing, I can't determine whether moving this garage would make it still effectable.
Was his reason to put it there so he wouldn't have to fill?
Chris, this is Dave again. My understanding is he put it the way he put it so he could easily back his boat trailer into the garage off the highway without causing any road blockage.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I actually drove by the lot and looked at it, even driving by it, so because of the large right of way, because there's nothing, I don't know, there's no marked foundation or anything. So even driving by, I wasn't able to get a good idea of what, like how the layout would look, but I did think that the way it's positioned now towards more the street, it makes more sense. Basically, I guess, at one point, there's gonna be a garage built, and the thing we're determining is if it should be a 5-foot setback from the side property line or 10 feet. And so if the garage is gonna be built, looking at Dieter's, the addition, the 913B, his little house that's built in the lower portion of it, it looks like actually pushing it more towards the road and giving him a 10-foot setback from the front line helps Dieter's, like, sunlight the most. Just, like I said, I drove by, quick look at it, but,
So you're saying if,
like, my takeaway is basically, I think the front setback, 10 feet instead of the 20 feet makes sense to me, and then whether or not we give them a variance 5 feet from the side lot, or if we just make them do the 10-foot setback is kind of my question, I guess.
thank you.
It's really hard to determine it without it being the scale. I mean, if you look at it, the corner of the garage is like 50 feet from the house. If you look at the scale where the 10-foot is, you look at where the 5-foot is, it's like 100 feet from the house.
Yeah,
So it's very hard to try to figure out what to do here.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree on that.
It is almost a 700 square foot garage. Pretty big.
Yeah.
A couple comments I did have on Dieter's letter, though, is he mentions like a precedent that they denied another structure being built. The way I understand it is we're supposed to take each like situation independently, so I didn't think that really mattered much. And looking at the like overview of the lot in that corner, kind of, I don't know, Dieter's lot, the one north of him, and the Hunter south of him, those are the three most peculiar lots in all of Sandy Beach, just right in a row there, so I think it is a really odd situation. And I was also thinking about the size of the garage, and 600 square feet is pretty modest for a boat and car garage. Like, I believe 2 months ago, we were looking at one proposed garage was 1,400 square feet. So, like, looking at that this seems like really reasonable. That was a similar
Yeah.
situation, you know. So I would also be in favor of, getting a better drawing. Like, if we can maintain the 10-foot setback from the side lot, I think I'd be in favor of that, depending on how close it is to the house. Like, if they're not able to park their boat because they move it 5 feet closer to their house, then, I can understand why they need that 5-foot setback, but. So I'd agree with everyone that I'd like some clarification on.
Just to be clear, Liz, the side yard setback is by code is supposed to be 10 feet? Thank you. Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with Tor on that, the 10 foot on the front is okay, but I think we should stick with the 10 foot on the side.
Yeah, I have a tendency to agree with Chris on that since his immediate neighbor has objections to it.
My primary objection is the side yard setback.
Yeah. Do you have any further discussion? We have a motion to amend.
Can we just amend it? No?
Liz,
Yes, but
we,
carefully
carefully,
and clearly, yes.
yeah.
So can I amend it to approve the 10-foot setback on the front line variance? And then can I make another amendment that we deny the 5-foot setback and maintain the 10-foot setback from the side lot?
Could you repeat
I
that?
think you might want to just start over.
Just start over.
I think it's probably better, yeah.
Okay,
A little convoluted.
yeah,
Just vote this as you want to and then start over. If it fails, then you just start with a new motion. And then
Okay.
I think you'll be better optional.
Call for a vote.
okay. Karen,
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. What did Liz say?
we're gonna, vote as we want on the original, motion. And then if that fails, then we'll just propose a new motion, that is amended.
Gotcha.
And, okay.
Okay, so on the original motion, Otis,
No. No.
okay, Chris,
No,
Richard,
No.
Dave,
No.
Tor,
No.
and Sally.
No.
okay. Do we have a new motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve an application of Brad and Sharon Hunter for a variance for the 10-foot back requirement from the front lot,
Including finding the fact.
including the finding of facts.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I think that part of this, if it's got the 10-foot setback, that affects the neighbor more, right?
The side yard, yeah. The 10 foot is what's allowed by without a variance on the side yard.
Yeah. But it, okay, we won't,
So all we're approving or requesting approval for is the front setback.
Correct.
if
So
35.
when I looked at the lot, like I say, there weren't any markers, so it's hard to really tell, but like the 913B, which is Dieter's, like little, I don't know, it's probably a 600 square foot house in the lower, I don't know, Oceanside corner there.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking at the garage, it seems like it is more towards the street, it'll block his light left. And so I think by giving him this, like by giving the hunters the ability to move it more towards the street, it would help Dieter's issue with the sunlight, which is an issue for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all just by eyeball driving by.
Where's the front?
Just my opinion.
All right. Do you have any further discussion?
Just to be clear, by approving the setback for 10 feet in the front along the road,
Mm-hmm.
we're then not allowing the 5-foot requested one on the side. It will be maintained at 10 also.
That would be maintained at 10. That's
So
what the
to be
motion,
clear, and I'm clear.
motion is.
Okay, thank you.
Karen?
I have a question about the motion.
Yes.
I was under, as I have it, it's approve the consideration of an application from Brad and Sharon Hunter for a variance from the front yard setback requirements to construct a 660 square foot garage 10 feet from the front property line at blah, 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 with the findings of fact. Nothing about the side.
Nothing about the side.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
Tor made the motion and Richard seconded. Dave,
Yes.
Otis,
No.
Chris,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Tor,
Yes.
and Richard.
Yes.
moving on to,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think you can just move on without addressing the other one and providing your reasoning for denying that.
for
Denying this 5-foot side one.
denying the 5-foot side one.
Yeah, you actually have to take action on that too, because that's part of the application.
Okay,
And provide the reasoning for the denial. Because they have the right to appeal that decision if they so choose.
okay.
You need to have some reasoning behind that.
Do you mind clarifying what you said, Chris?
That we have to, take action on the, on the side yard setback and why we denied the side yard setback. So that they can appeal that if they wish. So, do we have to do that as a separate motion, Liz?
I would do it as a separate motion.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion concerning the side yard setback in their application.
Yeah.
Liz, does that motion have to be in the affirmative?
I think it's clearer for you when you vote if you make it in the affirmative.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the side lot setback, or a variance on the side lot setback to 5 feet.
With findings of fact.
Well, you don't have findings of fact, you have to create those. because-
We have to create those.
Yeah.
But I thought it was
Yeah.
already in there. I'll second that.
I would suggest we just amend the findings of fact to address the issues that are there on this motion.
Like, I guess my thought would be, yeah, like, I didn't see how it's a hardship. I don't think they demonstrated the hardship that it would be between the house and the proposed garage. And so if that 5 feet is necessary for them to be able to pull through and back in with their boat, then I would think that would be, then I would be in, like, I would reconsider this. But because right now, our understanding of where the house is proposed to be, like, in position to the proposed garage, it doesn't seem like a hardship to me. So I don't see the necessary for variance.
Again, if the map is scale, it would be easier for us to make that decision too.
Yeah, based on the drawing, I don't see how that is an impact.
Looks like a huge distance on the drawing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I guess I would, yeah, in order for that variance, I want clarification on why it's necessary for that 5 foot. Why it would be a hardship.
We're saying that in number 2, the strict application of provisions of this title would result in particular difficulties or unnecessary hardships. I don't see that it does. So that's one we would be amending.
And pecuniary hardships, is it like it's going to cost them money to build it? I mean, they're already going to be building it. I don't think we should take that into account.
And based on the shape of the lot, basic geometry, you live with that structure 5 feet away from the property line, you're only moving 2.5 feet towards the house.
Yeah, it shouldn't be requiring that much additional fill, if any. So, any other further discussion? We need to amend the findings of fact to include the items discussed. Liz?
Well, I think you already stated your
Yeah.
reasoning, right?
Okay. We amended number 2 to, basically we're saying that the reason we're not going to approve it is that it doesn't meet number 2 in the findings of fact. So,
That, I guess, what's the exact wording, I guess? Should I get
Okay. The motion is to approve a consideration of an application from Brad and Sharon Hunter for a variance from the side yard setback requirements to construct a 660 square foot garage 5 feet from the side property line at with amended findings of fact submitted in the staff report.
voting in affirmative would approve the 5-foot setback instead of.
As well as.
Okay. I was just wanting to make sure, so our reasoning is included in this
Yes.
that we're voting on now?
Mhm.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks.
Okay, so your vote.
No, I do not approve.
Sally?
No.
Dave?
No.
Richard?
No.
Yeah, oh. Chris?
No.
And Otis?
No.
Moving on to public comments on the proposed zoning map. A number of written comments. These are going to be scanned into the record, as I understand it, Karen?
Yes, it will be scanned in and part of the next public hearing on March 12th.
Okay. So we're not taking any action on these at this time, we're just going to compile them all and take action at the end? Is that the plan, Liz?
Yeah.
You're taking action at the next meeting.
At the next meeting? Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jean Ellis, and I'm representing myself. And I'm here to protest the general industry zoning of a 35-acre parcel that I own on the airport bypass road. You have a letter from me in your packet. When I wrote that letter, I had spoken to someone at the borough office who gave me the impression that the zoning had already been approved by the assembly and there was nothing I could do about it. I now realize that they were talking about the zoning regulations, not the way a specific piece of property was owned. At this time, I have no plans to develop that 35-acre property, which I've owned for over 30 years. My son has teased me that when he is 90, he will say, yes, that property was a good investment. It will be another 40 years before he's 91. That property is now listed as undeveloped land pending future classification. I request that it remain that way. At this time, I don't know what the highest and best use of that property will be at some point in the future, and don't believe that this is the time to make that decision. I've been in contact with Bob Thorstenson, who owns the other 35-acre piece on the airport bypass road, and he would like his to also remain as undeveloped land pending future clarification. Thanks for your consideration. And I have this written too, so I could give it to you.
Holly, come up to the microphone and state your name.
Hi, Ray Olson Jr. I was just wondering how long the comment period is going to be open.
He said, speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. How long is the comment period going to be open?
We have a name.
Ray Olson.
Oh, Ray Olson Jr. Excuse me.
Sorry, to hear you.
Liz,
Yes,
how long is the comment period?
all the way to May 20th.
May 20th. Okay, so I got plenty of time to write my. Okay, thank you.
And when does the comment period end? May 20th?
May 20th.
Just for clarification, I'm saying May 20th because that's the date that the assembly is scheduled to make their final decision, so you can have all your comments in by May 20th, the week before the assembly.
And we're making our recommendation to the Borough Assembly when?
March 12th.
March 12th.
Hi.
Can I ask a question of Liz on the procedure here?
Yes.
Okay, when we're doing all these requests for specific changes to zoning, how and when should we deal with this, or is that not part of this process?
You will be considering all of these at your next meeting, and we'll do it the same way we did the zoning code. So there'll be one amendment for each request, and you will vote each one up and down. And then at the end, you either approve to recommend or not to recommend the final zoning map to the assembly.
Okay, thanks.
So, actually, sorry to interrupt, but that means Ray Jr. actually has to comment to you guys not by May 12th. He needs to respond by March 12th so that he can get his changes to be approved by you. Is that?
They don't actually approve.
We make a recommendation to the Borough Assembly, and the Borough Assembly votes on it, and they do their public hearing, and then 3 votes, and then it becomes finalized. So you have the first opportunity to change is talking to us. The second opportunity is to go to the Borough Assembly after we've made our recommendation. So you do have till May 20th to make the change. However, if you want to get it done sooner, it's probably better to bring it to us by our next
It's
meeting.
actually the March 12th.
March 12th would be a better time to.
With us.
With us, yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't agree with our recommendation, you still have the opportunity to go and comment to the assembly that you want to have that changed.
Okay.
And Chris, this is Dave again. I would request that if anybody wants a specific change done, the sooner we get it and we can take a look at it, the easier it's going to be, at least for me, to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, when we get flooded with long letters, it takes us a while to read through all of them. Some of these I'm reading for the first time today. So it'd be better if you get them in like a week beforehand. Okay.
And then on some of these, I'd also like to say, I'd like to take a look at it, some of these on the ground, because it's one thing to visualize them on a map, it's another thing to actually take a look.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Dave. Please state your name and.
I'm Harold Medallin, and I am representing myself and my wife, my mother Sigrid Medallin. Also, Mary Katas Miller asked me to speak for her because she's very hard of hearing, and Lars and Dan Christensen asked me to speak for them because they are both out of town. And what I'd like to do, I sent you a letter, but I'd like to just read it to you, and then if...
We have 3 minutes.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I spent the last 3 days slogging through all of this stuff. And I'm not only representing myself, and there's been a lot of changes. I hope that you will bear with me and allow me to read my letter. Have you got any objection to doing that?
It's 7 pages long, Harold. That's an awful long letter.
Well, you need to hear it, and I'd like, so anyway.
Can you summarize it? And because we've got the whole testimony in the
Well-
record right
And
here.
it's going to be scanned in.
And it's going to be scanned into the record.
You know, I think I'd like to read the whole letter, and I think it's highly inappropriate. I'll tell you, I've been following this issue, and from the borough website, it says, key objectives to it. Improve, streamline approval processes, increase the range of allowed uses, provide standards to ensure newly allowed uses fit with neighbors, increase clarity, consistency of code application, overall expand peers with economic opportunities and quality of life, address systematic shortcomings of the existing code, implement some of the land use provisions of the adopted comprehensive plan. All those sound pretty innocuous, but then we find out that the zoning is completely being changed in this area from what it's been. If you look at the 84 comprehensive plan and the 85 zoning, this was considered light industrial. you can open up your book, and now it's being changed into, as I look at this, this list, things that we've done on this property over here, or on my property south of Mill Slough, machine shop, boat building, metal manufacturer, cabinet making and carpentry, wood products manufacturer. All of those things we've done on that property, and they're all allowed under the C2 zoning that came into effect in '85. Now the one that we'll be able to do is have a newspaper. So I think the whole thing needs to be revisited, and I think it's unconscionable that you haven't sent a thing out to every property owner in town detailing exactly what the changes are to their zoning and what the allowed uses will be, because this has been presented as streamlining and allowing more uses and things like that. You know, and we don't want tiny houses. We want to be able to continue to use the property as we've been using it.
Liz, you have a website up where people can click on their property and see what the current zoning is and what the new proposed zoning is and what the changes are, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that is available
Plus,
on,
I've had a lot of people in my office.
on the website.
You
You
know,
can go in there and see what the difference is between the two zonings are.
You know-
What that change is.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I just want to say that the maximum that we can have a speaker up there is 5 minutes, it's not.
It's
I mean,
5,
I realize there's
okay.
a lot of people, I just want to let you know that it's actually 5
Okay.
minutes.
Per code. Okay.
yeah. And a citizen should not have to spend 2 of those minutes arguing about whether or not they're going to be able to speak. So anyway, if you're going to go through these things, what I think you need to do, I always appreciate getting the little letters from planning and zoning about things that are happening blocks away from my house. I don't think I've ever found any of them objectionable. The objectionable things that have happened adjacent to my property or my parents' property have all involved the city or the borough or things like that. And now, and they tend to sneak up on you, and you find out about it when you get a core permit application that they're going to put a parking lot over the middle of the bridge on the slough, and we shot that down. I fought the library project for about 5 years, from going to a meeting and seeing the footprint of the building was on our property. Then there was a big retaining wall, and there was pipes proposed to go across to go down the bottom Hammered Slough for a heating system. All of these things, and you find these things out at the last minute. And I think that you need to institute some kind of a way of letting the public know what you guys are doing. And a thing like a zoning ordinance that has a great effect on the value of our property and the present and ongoing use of the property, you need to send a letter in the mail. You can't expect us to look at I've been looking at your website, but you can't expect everyone to. I think a lot of people don't even realize what's coming down the road here.
We've been discussing this for...
Can I comment real quick?
Yes,
If you don't mind?
Dave, go ahead.
And I think one of the reasons that we did send out notifications, in the paper and on KFSJ, and we just let people know is if we send out a notice to each individual property owner, that's really expensive. And if we can get people to look online and see their individual properties, and then if they have issues, then they come talk to us. So any specific issues are really what we'd like to address, like in specific properties. So if you come up with a specific lot that you own and you think that the use is going to change and you want to understand that, then we can talk about specific properties with you for sure.
Well, thank you, and I certainly applaud your wanting to save money for us all. But I think that the public being informed is the most important thing. So, thank you very much.
You send out, what, 1,200 letters?
I did. We sent out letters to every property owner in Service Area 1 with the public hearing, the web address to look up the interactive map, and the maps themselves. So every property owner within Service Area 1 should have received the letter. If I get it back in the mail, I research further to see if there may be another address, and I remail it. So every due diligence is made to get those letters out.
And that's why I'm here, is because I got that letter. If I had gotten letters about the process, the change of zones, I would have been at those meetings, I can assure you.
Please step forward and state your name.
Hi, I'm Laurel McCullough, and I'm representing myself. I've got 4 lots on Birch Street, which I notice has been changed to downtown commercial. And I was wondering, first of all, why that was changed, considering that most of the structures on Birch Street right now are residences. And secondly, if it stays zoned downtown, if it is changed to downtown commercial, how that will impact future residential construction, if it will be allowed by, if it'll be allowed, I guess, is one of the questions. And if you guys can consider that when you are doing the final zoning, is that most of the structures down there are people's homes, and some of us with empty lots down there are, planning to build homes.
Can you send us a letter stating what you've just said?
Yes. All right.
Tell us what properties are yours and what zoning you'd like to have.
Okay. Well, and also, I guess another question is, if it continues to be downtown commercial, is there an appeal process to put a residence down there?
Liz, what are the regulations concerning putting residents on downtown commercial?
You can put residential on downtown.
Okay.
I don't want to tell you exactly, because I know you can do a house, single family, but I'm not sure the specifics on the other one. I'd have to look and see, and I can let you know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Thomas, can you hear anything?
Yeah, not great. I get the gist.
It is important, though, Laura, that you send something into us in writing.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Amber Burrell. I represent myself as well as many businesses that we've purchased in the past few years. There was something that keeps coming up, and I would like to make sure that it is on record for me to hear that the way that I currently use all of my properties, the way they are currently zoned, not according to this, according to when I bought them and paid all that money for those uses, that I will continue to be able to use them as intended when they were purchased.
Liz?
This is a really big thing for a lot of people. We've invested a lot of money into this community. And I need to hear somebody tell me that I'm not going to have to go take down the beachcomber. We have a construction company. I don't need somebody to tell me, sorry, I know you spent this much money on it, but you can't have an asphalt plant there anymore. You can't store your equipment there, because those are things that are coming down the pipes with this. And
As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, non-conforming uses are not going to change. So if it exists now, it can continue to exist.
So just so everyone knows what non-conforming use means. If you have an established use that's in place now before we change the zoning code, then that use can continue. But the use, you can't stop the use for 5 years and then sell the property or something and then have someone claim that, oh, it used to be 5 years ago X, and now we're going to have it X again. So the use has to continue, and as long as the use continues, you're fine.
so as long as I keep a license to have a liquor license and a restaurant and bar, I can continue forever to have a restaurant and bar.
Right, if it's a residential use, like let's say you have a bar on a residential lot, and that bar stays open all the time, and it's being used as that, then there's no requirement to switch and to conform with that residential zone.
Okay. Well, and
And if it was destroyed,
then I could rebuild for those.
establish it. Yeah,
uses.
Establish the use, and establish the structure.
So just like Laurel's house, she could continue to have a house there.
So there's no requirement to conform to the new current zoning. The zoning has been laid on top of a lot of uses that were already in place even when the first zoning happened. So there's a lot of houses down on South Nordic, that's all commercial zoning, but there's all residential uses there.
Well, that's there. You've got a lot of things that are happening that are.
But, primarily it's residential.
Yeah.
So, there's no requirement to drop that residential and suddenly you have to be a commercial. Same thing with a lot of industrial zoning got put on top of residential. There was no requirement to, destroy the house and then you have to have an industrial use. So
Okay.
as long as that use continues, you continue that use and there's no requirement. If the use stops, then you're going to have to conform.
Who chooses whether that use stops or not?
So we have-
Like, how do I,
In code, there's criteria determining how it stops, and there's a time period. I can't remember if it's 2 years or something like that. I'll have to look it up and let you know.
Okay.
There's a place where it kind of lays out what constitutes stopping.
okay. And then I couldn't find waterfront industrial on your website. There was no detail for what that was.
Like a summary?
Yeah, like everything else has a general industrial district, high density residential, but there was no waterfront industrial. And
In the code, you find, but I don't,
it didn't have a link to it. So it's very helpful if you can read it all, but they didn't have that one, so that was my only.
A question, what about plans of, say, future plans?
Please. Go to the microphone.
I'll ask the question. Ask the question.
What if you purchase property with the intent of doing something which now it does not allow you to do?
This is not law yet. If you purchase it today,
So,
No, it's by the effective date of the code. So the use is established by the effective
Okay,
date of
so-
the code, which is
so-
not effective yet.
I can put an asphalt plant out at my property on Hungerford Hill, even though I don't currently have one, because today I could do that.
Yes,
And that will go for any property within the borough.
and that's up to the effective date of the code, so whenever the Borough Assembly finalizes the new.
Okay, so anything that I own today, I can do whatever my allowable use is as of today, and until that one's.
Because the new map has not been approved yet.
Don't worry, neighbors, you're safe. I'm just dotting my i's and crossing my t's.
Amber, just so you know that the target date on that is that May 20th date.
Okay,
So
well, and that's what I wanted to explain to Ray, like, you want to get everything in
before,
on this level so that we don't have to deal with it.
hopefully.
They're a lot easier
A
to
lot less stress.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
these are questions, they're good ones.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary, I'm not gonna lie.
And hopefully you can allay a little bit your fears.
Yeah, well, I want it on record that, yes, this is not gonna change.
Grandfather gifts, yeah.
You know, like,
Do we have any further testimony, questions?
I'm Kelly Jones, and I'm representing myself, and I guess my question is, so if you have a home on a general industrial zoned area, if that house burns down, we're still allowed to build our house back?
Yes.
Yes, yes, you could rebuild to the same square footage.
Okay, thank you.
Have to be exactly the same.
Oh,
Historical.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Karen Malcolm, the administrative person. I would encourage everybody to get to me in writing what it is that you want to do with your property, because it will get scanned and be put into the packet for the next meeting, and it will be part of the public record. Even though it will, what has been submitted prior to this meeting and isn't in our packet, it will be in the next meeting. We do have deadlines, correct? For the packet.
Yeah, we'd like to get that on the weekend.
Right, a week prior to the meeting, so please get me your written, and my email is on the letter, it's everywhere online, if you would like it for the meeting, let me know. Thank you.
I'm Jean Ellis, and I have one more question. If you own a piece of property that's been zoned general industry and you haven't built a house on it yet, you won't be able to build a house on it in the future, right? Even though you bought it when it was zoned something that you could. Is that correct?
You can build a caretaker dwelling as an accessory
okay,
special
but-
use, and that's limited to 1,000 square
Up to
feet.
1,000 square feet.
But what you have to do is you have to follow the new regulations for building in that zone.
Yeah, if you haven't established a use yet.
And it has to be connected to a business that you have in that zone. The house, the caretaker dwelling.
It has to be connected to an industrial use.
Yeah.
So like a warehouse or storage is an
Yeah.
industrial use. Yeah.
Okay, I just wasn't sure that was clear to everybody, so I wanted to make sure it was clear.
If it's not established yet, then, you don't have a use that existed prior to the new code, so then you were going to follow the new code.
I did think that was true, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that that was true. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Joyce Bergman. I'm representing myself. I have a question. And I was happy to get the letter about vacating the properties for the Merles and that segment of right-of-way. So does the city have plans to build roads on the designated roadways that are on the maps? And I'm thinking specifically the roadway that's behind Goffin Street. There's a right-of-way between our rental property and the neighbor next door. There's a right-of-way there. And I'm just have this question because wondering if that will be vacated or not planned to be built on by the city.
That would be a question to ask Public Works, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Right now, I don't think they're building much.
I have heard of no plans to build any new roads, so, but it is a question for Public Works, for Chris.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
If Public Works says that they're not planning on it, then there's potential to locate right away.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I do have a question. When we want to submit our...
If you want to be on the public record, you want to be at the microphone.
Okay, so say I don't agree with the way that you've just rezoned one of my lots. How, do I just have to say, I don't want it this way? This is my name? Do you need to,
You would like,
do you have to have a reasoning behind it and, okay.
It would be really helpful.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to find out is, I don't like it, I don't want it that way, or do you need to specify, these are the reasons why I don't want you to do it?
helps us if you specify that.
Okay,
Make an informed decision, because we don't have a preset decision made. When somebody comes to us, we're open.
okay. So if you can say like, this is what makes sense, and this is why, then it will be easier to get things going?
And it's not that we're in an adversarial position sitting up here. It's
Yeah.
our town too.
Yeah, oh, no, it
We
just,
want to make,
there's lots of things that should be changed, but there's some things that I don't like the way they were
Once
changed.
this new map is approved, then it's going to be a lot harder to do.
That-
Right now, it's really easy.
Yeah.
You say, I don't like this, for this reason.
It's just hard to go through when you own every type of property and figure out what it means and how you could use it. I mean, you don't know in 10 years what you're going to want to do, so.
Well, the other reason we're working on the map so much right now is we're trying to deal with where we have a lot of non-conforming uses.
Yeah.
And conflicting uses in the same area, and trying to make it so that we're not impacting neighbors as much and everything else. So it's kind of the idea of some of the zoning changes, is to try to make it more closer to the way the property is being used now.
Yeah.
To make it so that there's less conflict.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of what's being done. And hopefully the new code, if you're reading through the new code, it's a little bit easier with the tables to figure out what you
Yeah.
can do with
Yep.
your property, so.
I do agree.
Chairman, can I just add another thing too? If you're making suggestions for changes, it's good to look at what the properties around you are, how they're zoned. It's hard for, I think, the planning commission to make something different when, make an island in the sea of something else,
Unless you already own an island in the middle of a
saying.
sea. I have a trailer park in the middle of, Severson
That's
subdivision.
multiple lots. I mean,
We
that's
live,
a large
our
chunk of
shop is
property.
10 feet from her house, so it's,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
a large chunk of property that's zoned mobile home or high density.
Yeah.
It's not like a 50 by 100 square lot.
Yeah.
In the middle of low density. So that's all I'm saying
Yeah.
is that, take into account the zoning of the places around you so that, you're looking at kind of making it all fit together. So
Mhm.
don't be like, way out in left field with everybody around you or something. So it makes it a little bit easier for, I think, these folks to make that decision. So that fits in,
Yeah.
so it makes sense,
Mine are pretty streamlined, but there's a lot of other people that maybe aren't as easy to.
Yeah, just in general, just, as people are looking at it, they're trying to make it kind of all fit into a whole pattern here.
And we all understand there will always be exceptions to the rule. Black and white, you know what it makes gray. There's always going to be gray areas too.
Yeah, but we don't like to see that, like in general industrial, right in the middle of a bunch of residential. It's just setting up for conflict.
Well,
So that's the,
that's Hungerford,
Yeah.
Hungerford goes back to
Unfortunately,
Navy, which is,
unfortunately, there's a lot of parts of town that are that way, and that need to be addressed. That's what some of this is trying to do, is see if we can make it a little bit better. We understand there's going to be ones where it's difficult. So.
Could I speak again? Harold Madolin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was on the planning and zoning back in the 80s when we did the original zoning ordinance, 1985 zoning ordinance. It was based on the 1984 comprehensive plan. And if you go back and read that plan, which you read my letter, it recommends you do that, and look through it and see what they were talking about. But at the time, we were zoning areas of Scout Bay and that, and we had people coming to us, landowners all over, were coming to the Planning Commission demanding they be zoned industrial, because the main reason was they gave them the maximum latitude for development. And if you look at the industrial zoning, it allows for all kinds of residential uses, multifamily, mobile home park, so on and so forth. If you look at the industrial, you guys have just changed to allow no houses. And one of the mistakes we made back then, I believe, was because the concern was that somebody might build a home, a beautiful home in an industrially zoned land, and then somebody comes in and puts an asphalt plant next to them, then they'll start bitching about it. Well, and that was, so, okay, we'll do a conditional use. And that way we're putting that property owner on notice that, hey, you can build on your nice waterfront industrial lot, but if someone comes in and does some kind of industrial use next door to you, you have no room to complain about it. And that's where that comes from, lots of these little islands there. And if you look at the 84 plan, it goes very far into all the mixed uses on the waterfront and the desire of the community to keep these mixed uses and on all these lands. So I think you guys are making a mountain out of a molehill with having residences in industrial areas and little islands and that, because that zoning's been on the book since '85, and most of these properties in town have turned over since then. Not all of them, but most of them. So people are going into this with both eyes open. You know, when you buy land, you look at what the zoning is.
The problem that we've run into is the fact that when there is a conflict, it gets brought to us and to borough staff, and then borough staff has to deal with people who are upset because of this use that's right next to their residential property that was built on industrial, and they're concerned about that. And you know, that's the reason that there's one of these, we're trying to say, okay, we don't want to see too much residential on the general industry areas, so that way there's not the conflict. That's what's trying to be addressed at this point.
There are some beautiful houses on industrially zoned property here, and I haven't heard any complaints of any of those property owners that have built in industrial areas now. And if they do, it can be, they're on notice that, hey, you're in industrial zone. If you love that spot on the face of the earth, that's where you want to live. Somebody might put a sawmill next to you. So, I mean, that's all been spelled out for many years. So I don't think you guys are solving any problems with what you're doing. So, thank you.
Any further testimony? Hearing none, let's move on to non-agenda items. Any commissioner comments? Any staff comments? Liz?
No.
Our next regularly scheduled meeting is March 12th at 12 p.m. We have a motion to adjourn.
Yes, so moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.